Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to proceed with the next session, Artists of Our Time. So if we could please have your attention to the front of the room.
Baseball players fly. Baseball players fly. Sculpted by nature. A beaten path, ruined by men who treasure trophies instead of white. The cat sitting in the window will soon die middle age. On the nose, this is inevitable. He drinks himself to death. Cry out loud if you want to. Smoke up all my dope. Peek into a brain. Still his last thought. Smack the Beetle with your bare hands. Excuse me, mister. You might be ready. But you know that God's not ready for you. Baseball players wide. Sculpted by nature. A beaten path. Ruined by men who treasure trophies instead of whites.
Thank you, Marvin Tate. This session is the Artists of Our Time, and there's no more perfect way to start this session than with an artist performance, so thank you for that. I'm going to be introducing the session's moderator, and from there, he will introduce our esteemed panelists. Fahim Majid. Fahim Majid is a builder, literally and metaphorically. A resident of the South Shore neighborhood in Chicago, Majid often looks to the material makeup of his neighborhood and surrounding areas as an entry point into larger questions around civic mindedness, community activism, and institutional racism. As part of his studio practice, the artist transforms materials such as particle board, scrap metal, and wood, and discarded signs and billboard remnants, breathing new life into these often overlooked and devalued materials. His broader engagement with the arts also involves arts administration, curation, and community facilitation, all which feed into his larger practice. And we can't think of a better person to be moderating this conversation with these fellow artists. No one more so than you, sir, an artist yourself. Thank you, Fahim, and enjoy introducing our next panelist.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? First, let's give Marvin another round of applause. Brother, what? That's just how I want to get up in the morning.
Yeah, man. Well, those are like kitchen songs that my grandmother sung. You know, not exactly those words, but that tone.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that longing.
yeah. So what I thought we would do is, rather than getting up, kind of sitting at the pedestal or the podium there, is that we would just sit. And each of you, everyone's going to do kind of a little short thing about their work. And then we're going to open it up really early to Q&A. And I'm going to mix my cues in with your cues. And then we're going to have some A's together as the conversation. But I'm really honored to host this. For many of you may not know, I curated a show called Post-Black Folk Art in America, which is I was the outsider to the world of outsider, and now I spend a lot of time with the organization, understanding their passion for the work, and also kind of understanding the complexity of the genre of Black folk art kind of as well, which is a whole other thing. So I'm honored to be here, especially as an artist. These are artists that I deeply respect and admire. So I'm here just like everyone else, excited to learn. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to start with Marvin. Marvin is an interdisciplinary artist and a staple in the Chicago visual, poetry, and performance, indie, improvised, jazz, and jazz music scenes. Born in North Lawndale neighborhood on the city's west side, Tate is known as an outro soul man, outry soul man. Combined literary waxing with raw social issues and improvisation. As recently stated by music journalist Peter Megasak, Tate toggles between quasi-operatic crooning, soulful balladeering, forceful hectoring, and guttural chanting. No matter which direction he takes, the results are riveting. His voice can be heard on jazz drummer Mike Reed's most recent record, 2017's Flesh Bone, 428 records, and the process. His 2015 collaboration with sound artist Joseph C. Mills. As a visual artist, Tate's voice is rooted in the stylings of the so-called outsider artists, or the genre of outsider art. Tate finds a coexistence in beauty in the discarded, the untrained, and the underrepresented, a connection firmly rooted in his working class upbringings. Brother Tate.
I wrote all that.
Yeah, that's pretty. I gotta get with you. Do
Artist
mine.
statement, you know.
Yeah. So, let's. You're a multifaceted individual, as we can see. But today we're going to look a little bit at some of your work, and maybe we can also you can talk about kind of how you move between sound and music and making. To your right is some of the images. I'm just going to scroll through, but you can reference them or not.
Tiger Lily. So what's that made of? Going to grocery shopping, every 2 times in a month, I guess, if you're lucky. And I was just fascinated by the handles on the shopping bags. And so one day I just started rolling them up, and it turned into this here manifestation, Tiger Lilies, or Tiger Lily. Yeah. The kisser. That's pretty pink. Believe it or not, I worked at a shoe store years ago, and I remember just coming back from Poland, doing a gig, and there was this guy named Ted. Ted, you're not in here, are you? He said he was like a real shoe dog. He was like, Marvin, get those shoes up, man. You can't have those shoes hanging out. Customers come in. I was like, oh, I just got back from Poland, dude. What's up with you? Standing ovations. And so I took these shoes, and inside the garbage can, there was all these shoe inserts, and these things were like just coming at me, just like talking to me, And so I just started taking them home with me, and just start creating stuff with them. And it's like just taking stuff from my environment, actually. It's something that as a young man, young boy, actually, the first time I encountered such folk type, manifestations was when my brother James made us toys out of, so maybe James should be here, but he made us toys out of aluminum foil. And that just blew my mind. That was the best toy I ever had. And that type of honesty, that type of subtlety, that's embedded in your upbringing, your culture, your family, it's the kind of honesty that I want to continue to have. And this is why I do this type of
So this is the childhood in North Lawndale. How long were you in North Lawndale?
all my life, really, spiritually, but like for 21 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And we should continue. This is Stony Island Jesus. I love the name Stony Island Jesus. And those are orange pills. They really make nice noise when they're, all good and hard, And the rest is shopping bags. The hands are made of, I was eating a lot of shrimp at the time. I wasn't making it. I just, bought a big bag of shrimp from Aldi's. And I used the hands for shrimp and some other foul stuff. And yeah, and I was listening to a lot of like free jazz. So that's like sunrise kind of character. Yeah.
Do you ever differentiate between, like, is that fluid, like the making and the music? Like, do you compartmentalize, say, okay, now I'm making a sculpture, and now I'm gonna make a song?
That's funny, man, because no, and I don't know how to, well, I'm gonna try to explain it to you.
Okay.
But when I'm creating art, I'm humming a song in my head at the same time, and I might just run to the computer and type down some words. I might play air guitar. What drug is he on? But that's how I work in my little world, And I think, it derived from, like, as a kid, I stuttered a lot. I stuttered very severely. And I had a fraternal twin, Melvin. We both stuttered a lot. And they put us in speech class in first, second grade. But there were times, though, I thought like I was inventing my own language. I was inventing my own world, and it was kind of cool, And I think that kept with me. And it wasn't until my sister gave me a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks, "We Really Cool." You know how short the poem is and all that space. That I started putting, I memorized that poem to the point where I didn't stutter, but I had to be reading a damn poem. Otherwise I'd be like, la, 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 And also she introduced me to the voice of Roland Kirk. And I just thought, like, hey, man, there's people out there like me. I just got to develop this science. I mean, I didn't think that deep then, but I was just like, because, talking fast did give me an advantage in the dozens, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like I would just say crippled. Yeah, post-apocalyptic blurred, yeah, that's just pieces of wood, and a blurred is like the black version of a nerd, if you don't know. This piece I just sold. Those who didn't make it to the opening at my house, you missed it. Melissa did. It was going on. This is Aunt Mushi. She, my partner's aunt is from Germany, and she was an artist, and she was kind of eccentric, like, and she would talk in that old Hollywood type voice. Oh, Marvin, how's your art doing? And I was just Mushi, and she just talked about Germany all the time. And this is just, I saw this piece of wood, and these, it wasn't painted or anything, but these silhouettes looked like buildings to me. I've always been fascinated by architecture, and I had this little piece that looked like Mushi. Mushi was a loner, and so this is Aunt Mushi. Wow, 2010, man. Oh, well, porn star, you know, watched a lot of porn, you know. Anyway, yeah, I mean, shoe inserts, you know.
You have a lot of shoe inserts. I mean, out of your work, like, is there like an endless supply of? Have you tapped into like?
Well, you know, I have a friend. I had a good friend that really believed in me, and she would give me these days off. She runs things at this shoe store. I won't say. I'm gonna drop a name on you. And she gives me these shoe inserts. She just calls me up, you know, like, Marvin, got some shoe inserts for you, and I'm like, wow, I'm there, man. So, you know, as long as that's still going on, you know, I can make more of those. But yeah, this, wow, I haven't seen it in quite a while, and it really looks good. Next, please. What's this here? It's at 16th Street, Moonbreak. Wow, great titles. That's a poet in working, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Love titles.
Do you spend a lot of time with your titles, or those things that come to you as you're making it, and then they kind of manifest, or do you have?
They come to me for most of when I'm done, you know. 'Cause, you know, I remember, like, you know, just having that kind of mind, just loving titles, man. You know, I should just spend hours reading the 45s, you know, reading all the stuff in the old 45s, and just loving the titles. You know, I mean, it's like, wow, this is a great title. So.
So you're pretty open. I was watching you do you had a show and you were kind of walking through, and you were talking about snow globes. You were talking about these snow globes that were really inspirational for you, and then you were making these jars that looked like snow globes. I think Patrick McCoy was, and then everyone just assumed that they were connected, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess they are. I mean, there's some things that kind of come out in your work, and it seems like you lean into those things, and you're open to, as you have these epiphanies, even if it's live. Sometimes you have these. I always see you like these. Oh yeah, that is there. I didn't even see that until just now. I mean,
Well,
it seems like there's some things that are constant themes in your work that come out, and even sometimes you don't even.
houses, man. I community, and the longing for family. You know, longing to have an ideal type family. So I was always fascinated by houses, man, and I've made many scenes inside boxes, and just, you know, assemblages of houses. I was always fascinated by that, you know, and especially old buildings. You know, here's something I tell you. Years ago, I was in the library, and I was looking at the history of Chicago neighborhoods, and this is why I know I'm on the right track. And I went to North Lawndale, and it's 1901. Here's the picture that the house that we grew up in, 1901. And I know it's 1901 because there's this little white girl over there with a Shirley Temple outfit on, and a tricycle. And down the street, you can see the Douglas train being built. My fascination with buildings and neighborhoods, man, you know, and I just love seeing old buildings, you know, to the point where my daughter said, we were driving the car, she said, Dad, don't talk, because I always talk about the same thing all the time. See that building, honey? Up there, you know what I mean? Yeah. She's got some pea pods. There was this young lady, yeah.
Those are pea pods.
Yeah. Liz, this beautiful Puerto Rican woman, had some beautiful Puerto Rican lips. That's kind of stereotyping, isn't it? But she had those
lips when she was Puerto Rican.
Yes. Wow, you know. Yeah, and yeah.
I mean,
Makes you want to kiss them.
okay. That's a stark contrast. I mean, that's a far more minimal kind of application. It seems that you switch up a little bit in.
I go there, you know, and, you know, yeah. Oh, what can I say? Oh. You know Makiba?
Kadeem Bois?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Makiba, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and those wine corks and cardboard silhouettes and wire and stuff, and I just wanted to, you know, I got the corks from a friend who drank a lot. We called him Corky, you know. And he gave me all these wine corks, and I just, you know, putting things in boxes was always my thing. I love boxes growing up. And, you know, we would just find a box and we would just play inside the box. And I grew up in a time when people, like kids in the neighborhood, made their own go-karts, made their own, like, what's those things you just shoot, man? Anybody know that? Yeah. Slingshots and the other thing, there was a thing that we had.
BB guns.
No, not BB guns, but they were like, it was a stick with a rubber band.
Zip gun. The zip
Wow, man, yeah, we make things, man. You know, and I would see them make things, and my cousin Jerome and Melvin, my brother Melvin, my twin brother Melvin, and I, we had this gang. It wasn't a gang; it was just three of us. But like I, you know, Melvin would collect rocks, Jerome would collect sticks, and I would sing songs and tell stories in between the gangways and stuff. You know, man. So it's that type of honesty that I like to adhere to wherever I go, and finding people and creating art, creating music, creating whatever, you know, that type of, it's something that you have to do when you become of the world, but still you're in the world, but not of it. And that's where I always like to try to keep myself, hold on to whatever changing values that you grew up. You gotta adhere to that type of honesty, and it's an abstract thing, you know. Wow, yeah.
the crossover with your music.
Yeah, the music is like that too. The music is, you know, I always felt like, you know,
That's phenomenal.
yeah, the various voices, man, you know, and I don't have to adhere to them all, but I always heard, like, even listening to Motown, even listening to the blues, rural blues. It's that essence that I want to feel, and it's the same essence that you can hear in punk, the same essence you can hear in free jazz. It's an honesty, it's a subtle thing. It's a truth that doesn't last. It's not like a elongated truth. It's just like, and you're always trying to go back to that. You're always trying to find that voice. You don't always get there, but you know, if you're done over 100, 200 pieces of work, you create your own language. You create your own world, your own inner peace, your own meditations.
Are those pencils?
Those are pencils. Yeah, man, that was a hard ordeal there. But so I had this task of like taking furniture from CPS, old furniture, old youth furniture, and I thought, like, you know, in the classrooms you just see people, like kids, like, hey, you know, where's my? I can have a pencil, and then they leave, and there's pencils all on the floor and stuff. You know, I'm like, you need no pencil, man. You know, and so I came up with this here. I found this old record player, and this is a bench here that's holding up.
Okay.
That's a pedestal, and I went to work. You know, wow, that piece now.
Where's that?
That piece is at the Art Institute in the there's architecture
Oh, really?
building. Yeah,
It's gone, folks.
it's gone. But if you want it,
We're going to get in a couple more before we transition here.
all right. Train ride to Kenosha. My daughter had met this dude who moved to Kenosha, and I think I spelled that wrong, did I? God damn it.
no.
Maybe that's Asia Kenosha. I don't know, man.
Oh, right. Yes.
Train ride to Kenosha.
KE.
KE, yeah, and I knew she would, you know, it's your daughter's first love, and you're like, okay, we'll do whatever. Take the train to Kenosha if you want, you know. And eventually, that was like, she was like, this is too much, and so that's just thinking of my daughter riding that train to Kenosha. Graduation day, self-portrait, corks, string,
Black Court.
yeah. Waiting for Emily. Oh, these titles are killing me. I'm gonna buy the book. It's just strings and straps of wood, and dreaming of going to, I think I just came back from Berlin or something, and I just like, I gotta put that in my head somehow. Put that down, document that. And I always liked lights, man. I always liked, Porsche lights and, little lights you stick in, and I was telling people a couple days ago how I used to like sit down at the old stereo we had and there was an orange light there, and I would just stare there and just stand there, just stare at this light, man, just go all over the world, man. You know, lights, more orange pills, period in time.
Well, no, this is great, brother. Let's give him a hand, everyone. And we're going to come back. So save your questions for a little later. There's some things I'm excited to hear Della and Dr. Smith speak. And I know I have some more questions for each of you. But let's we're going to do the musical chairs. I'm going to get out the way. And Della,
I should move.
yeah, you can switch with Della. This is our little stage performance. Yeah, yeah, you don't have to move. Hello, Della. We're gonna, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna do a little introduction here first, if you don't mind.
What if I said I did? And I'm just kidding.
This is your show. I'm just a squirrel in this world, trying to get a nut. That's it. It's your world. All right. Della Wells. Della Wells is a self-taught artist who began drawing and painting in earnest at the age of 42. Her creative process stems primarily from her personal experiences embellished through the art of storytelling. Wells' work has been written about and appears in several publications, including those produced by National Geographic. In 2010, Don't Tell Me I Can't Fly, an award-winning play inspired by her work, commissioned by Milwaukee's First Stage Children's Theater and written by Y. York, was read at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. for its New Visions, New Voices Festival. The following year, the play debuted in Milwaukee and has since been produced in Nashville, Tennessee, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Wells has exhibited in the United States, Italy, British Columbia, including the Hickory Museum of Art, 2017 exhibition, New Horizons, Self-Taught Art in the 21st Century, and a 2018 solo exhibition at Loyola University Museum of Art. Welcome, Della.
Thank you. Oh, here I am with, a lot of my work stems from my childhood, and my mother was from North Carolina, and my father was from Baltimore, and, my mother used to tell me these wonderful stories, and actually I believed them, but I found out that a lot wasn't true, because my mother has schizophrenia, and she actually went 19 years undiagnosed. So, I grew up with a pretty crazy family, but she also took us to the art museum. My father had, he had books. And the dolls here, I started making the dolls mainly to try to connect to my childhood. And as a child, I never got any black dolls except for my aunt, Doretha, gave me my first doll. And my mother gave me a pillow doll, and it came from some cereal box. She paid $0.25 for it. So I decided one day I want to make dolls. I want to make pillow dolls. And so I make these dolls. I make up stories with them. And it's for me to connect with my childhood. But a lot of them are black, but I do, all races. And a lot of my dolls and women in my artwork, like so many of us women do, we deal with the crazy in the, in the world. One of the things I do is collages, and this one is called Jacob's Son, and I call it Jacob's Son because it was influenced by Jacob Lawrence. And one of the things I do in my collages, in my work, I'll make reference to my own personal history. I'll make reference to history, period, art history, or, whatever. And when I do the collages, which is kind of fun for me, I do not get any new materials. I have to use what's in my house. And I buy materials. I pick up materials off the street. Even my grandkids and nieces and nephews, they give me everything, give me materials. Actually, my great-grandson, we fight over materials. He won't give me. So I have to bribe him with Pokemon cards or Blades, to give it to me. And his mother is kind of funny. when she was a kid, she used to tell me, "Don't do that. You're embarrassing me." She's 28 years old, and she'll tell me, "Don't say that. You're too loud." And I always tell her, "Look, I'm 67 years old. You're not going to tell me what to do." So, but that's how a lot of women are in my work. Now, this piece here is called Me, 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 Me. And there's a companion piece called You, 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 You. And I did this piece mainly because there's so many people I know, all they talk about me, 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 me. And actually, when I think about the political situation today, it's all about me, 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 and you, 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 you. So, one of the things I always say, don't make an artist mad, because you may do work about them, and that's what I do. That's what I do too sometimes. Another thing I do is pastels, and thy truth will set you free. Seek thy truth and it will set you free. And this is kind of self-autobiographical, about me, because I grew up a very angry young woman. In fact, when people meet me now for the last 20 years, they said, "You so mellow." And then my family and friends that knew it said, "Nah, you never want to make her mad." So, but what helped me was really start seeking my own truth, and I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and with Leave It to Beaver, Fathers Know Best, and I used to think everybody's life was perfect, and my families are screwed up. Then I got grown and found out everybody's family screwed up. Most people's life it's not perfect. I also like doing faces, particularly faces of women. The piece in the stripes is called Tanya, and actually I did that piece with for the play Don't Tell Me I Can't Fly, and the little girl in the play that was based on me is named Tonya. And Tonya had a very good imagination like I did. And I like making up my own fairy tales and stories. I'm very influenced by like Dr. Seuss, fairy tales, cartoons, which are really great for kids. Not really, because there's a lot of horrible stuff that happens in fairy tales. I'd be saying, why we show this stuff to kids? I mean, think about it. Hansel and Gretel, what happens? They try to throw them in the stove. Sleeping Beauty, her stepmother give her an apple. So, I like to talk about the paradox, especially being a woman, because they tell us all the time we're on a pedestal. And you may meet, but all the time they try to knock us off pedestals, and we got glass ceilings and stuff. This is part of my little Color Girl series. And one of the things, like I said before, I always wanted to be free. I want to be free of my childhood baggage. I want to be free of people who try to control me, particularly men who try to control me. And the little Color Girls, generally, they're faceless, but even though she has an eye, because a lot of times they don't see us, particularly being black women. And this is paint. It's also a collage. I use a lot of symbols in my work. If you see an eye in my work, it represents God. And one of the things I do, as you probably see some more collages, I put a chicken in all my collages, and they take place in Mammal Land. You want to hear my chicken story? Yes. Okay, this is very traumatic, okay? When I was small, my father, every payday, he would come and bring us a treat. He'll bring us donuts, bologna sandwiches. One day he brought lettuce and tomato sandwiches. We were mad. So this particular day, he brought home a chicken. And I was about 8 years old, and I was really excited because it was a pet. Oh, was I wrong? So my mother, because she lived on a farm, she took that chicken and wrung that chicken's neck, and I was horrified. And guess what we had for dinner? And I wouldn't even eat it. And it took a long time for me to eat chicken, because prior to that, I know things had to die so other things could live. I thought food came in nice little packages. I didn't know it was walking around. I didn't know the cow was walking around. And so it's me finding out my truth and my fear. And the women in my work, they own their truth and they take care of their fear. Okay, you see here, you see the chicken. They're right in the chickens. And then I have, if you see butterflies in my work, they represent transformation, particularly of the soul. I've been working on transformation of my soul. I like making the houses, and this takes place, like I said, in Mammal Land. I like flowers too, even though I kill everything that I grow. But because we bloom. But you can see. And another thing that was a big part, I do religious scenes, and this take place in Mammal Land. And another thing I use in my work is fish, okay? And I use fish for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm a Pisces, so don't hate me for it. And the other thing is because Jesus fed the multitudes. And the black church is very important in the African American community. But for me, it also represented positive things, but it also represent negative things, because I grew up, in the church. I appreciate the church, but then when I was a young person, I would start resenting the church because they were trying to make me into something I didn't want to be, and I felt a lot of times, in the church, they, you gave black people religion to suppress them, but we pulled together, and the celebration of the church. And that piece, by the way, is owned by my friend back there, Carol Gergich.
Yeah. So, Della, real quick question. You say Mammal Land?
Mambo Land.
Mambo Land.
Yeah,
Can you
Mambo.
expound on that a little bit?
Okay. I started doing art when I was 42 years old. I always knew how to draw, but we won't go into that story. But anyway, at the time I started, I was going to school. I was going to make a career change, going back to school. I was going to be a psychologist, okay? And while I was going back to psychologist, my advisor told me I need some art history course, some humanities. She told me to take an art history course. And I said, I know a little bit about art, but I won't go in why before, but I knew a little bit. So I went there, took the course, and I did a paper on, because I was a non-traditional student, I was in my late 30s at the time, on this artist named Evelyn Patricia Terry. I met Evelyn Patricia Terry when I was 18 years old, when there was a gallery toward the black, there was a gallery in Milwaukee called Gallery Toward the Black Aesthetics, which I won't go into. But make a long story short, she was trying to get me to do art. I had transferred over to UW Milwaukee, and I was majoring in sociology, women's studies, and African American studies, and that's where I learned about Mambols, and I took a course in African religion, and it was very empowering for me. So I decided in my magical land where black women rule, that I'm gonna call it Mambo, and Mambols were basically, I forget which religion, were like high priestess. So that's where I got Mambo from. Another thing you'll see in my work, you see the chicken, you'll see the American flag. Sometimes you may see the black flag. And one of the reasons I put the American flags in it is because we as African Americans have a unique relationship with the American flag. Sometimes, we're told that we love this country, but this country has not been good. So it's a complex. We fought for this country. We have, died for this country. We want our children to succeed, but we also recognize the dangers. And you'll see flying in my work too. And the reason why you see flying is because you can fly over adversity. Okay, and sometimes I put men in my work, and they're all not negative, okay? Because I love the brothers, okay? But in this case, she's mad at him because he won't give her chicken. And she's telling him, and he's like, you know you love me, baby. And she like, I want my chicken. So, and I tell you another thing that influenced my work too is sometimes instead of getting mad at people, I go make art. And sometimes I'll be influenced by some things that people do. I know my sister-in-law mother is always trying to tell me what to do. And I did a piece once called Take Your Purse and Go Back Home, Miss Betty. And it was kind of funny because I had a solo show at this museum, and she was there. And not one time did she ask me, why'd you call the piece Betty? No, that's how, that's how she is. Okay, this piece is a commission piece I did for the Charlotte Children's Theater, and it was when they did the play. And there's Tanya, who's flying up in the air. And these are various characters in the play. My father, which he was, I grew up with a very angry father. And it was interesting when they did the play in Milwaukee, this lady came up to me and said, why the father was so mean? And I told my brothers that. He said, that guy was nice in the play compared to our father. I wish that was, our father. Another thing I do is drawing, and this is this is one of my little Color Girls series. And I kind of like doing crazy people because I think the world is crazy. Definitely now is crazy. But, she's dancing with a man, and he really don't see her either. But it's all good. It's all good. These are two recent, I did these specifically because my Evelyn Terry, she just did a show on nudes, and I've done nudes before, and I really like her because a lot on the end with the, with the panties sitting down, because really she's like, I like my people to say, what the heck is what is going on here? Because there's a lot, and you see I drew fishes. Fishes in the background. And I also love Haitian art. And when I first started, people used to ask, was I Haitian? Because they said my work looked Haitian. I suppose my early work, did, but I really love Haitian art. Okay, this is an early piece I did, and this is, and this is called Are You Insane? And basically, again, the clowns in her life, particularly the clowns probably in my life, and she's looking at, like, you're not going to move me. But they keep doing crazy people keep doing stuff anyway. But you got to persevere and ignore them. Okay, now this piece here was this is an early piece too I did in the 90s. And this was, it's a pastel, and I like to think of my women as being Eves because, Eve get blamed for everything. It was Eve's fault they got kicked out. And these particular Eves represent different images of black women. The sex siren, the loose woman, mammy, the caregiver, and then the welfare. And you see W2 on the face, all dealing with stereotypes. And the only sin that they ever made was actually being born black and female. Okay, this is another one where this is an early one too, where you will not get my fish or get my milk. She doesn't want, she doesn't want to share. She's looking around and she's holding real tight to her fish, her soul. And a lot of my women, I like to think of my women being powerful because I was really influenced by a lot of powerful women. And my Aunt Aretha helped me. My Aunt Frances, my godmother. And then when I went back to the school the second time, I learned about I based my women on people like Fannie Lou Hammer, Ella Baker, Maya Angelou, Bell Hooks, a lot of strong women, and I like to think that I am a strong woman, at least at the moment. Okay, this is another happy day in Mammal Land, and we just in Mammal Land, women like doing their thing. I don't care what's crazy. They're flying around. You see, you see the sun. It's just happy. They don't care because they're gonna do themselves. You can do you, but they're gonna do them.
Where's that?
Where's Mammal Land?
Yeah, where's this?
Okay, this is in a collection in Milwaukee of this woman named Katie Howe. Okay. All right.
I tried, y'all. I tried. I'm trying.
Okay. Another thing that I do is teacups. And I told you my minor was African American Studies. The teacups basically represent, because black women back in the day used to have tea parties to plan political strategy, to plan strategy about their neighborhoods. And I like my women to meet and discuss. And I think we all should discuss things. So I like them walking. Sometimes I make them walking around in teacups. And one thing I like about being an artist, I can make up my own stuff. And I like doing that. I don't have to make things like they are. Maybe that's why I didn't like art in school. Okay. And again, this is another little color girl, little color girl drawing. You see the American flag, and I like having a lot of things going on in my pieces because there's a lot of things that's going on in life. And actually, what's going on politically now, I'm doing a lot of work that's really influenced by the political what's happening today. So I always had an interest in politics. And I did have a chance once to be a political lobbyist, as intern for political lobbyist, but I didn't take the job because they fired my friend, and I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it up there. Oh well, that's life.
Give her a hand, y'all. Thank you, Della. We're gonna rotate here. Musical chairs. Dr. Smith? Okay. It's your time to show up to bat. It's your turn. How you doing, brother? Fine. All right. It's an honor. And thank you, Della. That was amazing. You make my job easy.
I did? You did. I'm glad I made somebody's job easy. My grandchildren don't feel that way.
I'm gonna introduce Dr. Smith. When did you get in, man?
What was that?
When did you fly in? Did you fly in?
No, I came by train. Amtrak.
All right. Say it again. Oh yeah, Dr. Smith. Is it on? Let me see. Yeah, you good to go. All right.
Yeah, before we get started, my
Yes.
wife made me to promise to her that I would tell the audience in the beginning, Dr. Smith, hearing is going.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, I got you.
She said, 'cause you don't hear where I keep telling you, calling you for dinner and whatever, you just looking. So it's
Okay.
part of the war. So it's an issue that needs to be considered when we talking.
Okay.
You have to speak up so I can hear.
All right. Y'all heard it. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. That would have been real awkward. Okay. All right, here we go. Dr. Charles Smith was born in 1940 in New Orleans and grew up in the Chicago area. Memories of attending at the age of 15 the funeral of Emmett Till and his experience in combat as a Marine in the Vietnam War profoundly impacted the artist and his work. Divinely inspired with a vision to direct his anger at the pervasive racism in America and his suffering from the post-traumatic stress into art. Smith, in 1986, began creating signs and sculptures in tribute to the more than 7,000 African Americans who died in the Vietnam War. Located in Aurora, Illinois, the site, which he named the African American Heritage Museum and Black Veterans Archive, developed into a memorial rooted in the experiences of African American people. In 2000, the Kohler Foundation worked with him to conserve nearly 600 sculptures from his site in Aurora and gifted them to the museums around the country as he began on a second art environment in Hammond, Louisiana. Louisiana, correct? Yeah. Like his environment in Aurora, and continually evolving Hammond site includes a house, rocks, and broken concrete, fortifying the borders, and hundreds of powerful figures, famous, historical, and everyday, probing the African American experience from the time of the diaspora to the present. Amen. Let's welcome Dr. Charles Smith.
Thank you.
So like I said, we have these images to the right here, and you can reference them, or you know, you can talk about your work, you can talk about individual work, or you can talk about your experiences from Hammond to now.
Well, the site is developed and designed by divine inspiration on how to reach the traffic of people that passes by. And it was a very common theme for me because I'm following the teachings of Dr. King. What you do in terms of the fight, it has to be nonviolent. It has to be socially acceptable, which art definitely is, and it has to cross cultural lines, not just blacks, but it has to include America. And that was my goal when I began that site, to share our story, how we came, how we arrived, and what happened, and the people in the country of Africa, and the various languages and the various tribes. And before I go any further, I want to give honor and credit to those that helped made this possible. And first and foremost, that's Mr. Reven Fellows. Sit and stand, Reven. This fellow here. And Teresa, right there, stand please. Amen. And Andy Williams Jr. Stand, brother. Yeah. I always honor those that God has blessed in serving the ministry of this work because it's very important. I was just recently in Detroit at the Heidelberg Project, for which the director and president of it is here today to make a presentation with Honorable Brother Tyree Guyton. And that was during that time I was on the road coming from there. A comrade of mine in the ministry of this work, Mr. Kevin Walls, died. He went across the line, yellow line on the highway, and hit a semi-truck. And you know the outcome wasn't right. And he passed, left his wife and children. And the ironic part about it is that Kevin had came by the house about 2 weeks before I went to Detroit. He said, Doc, I had to come here in Louisiana and see how you're doing, see what you're doing. And man, you just done tore this corner up. And right after that, that's when it happened with Kevin. So like I tell artists when I meet them, when you do a show, always act like that's your last show, because it might be. And I thank God for those that have come to help, and that is why I praise, the honor, and magnify Intuit. Intuit made it possible for Dr. Smith to be where I am today by way of Mike Nolan, the gentleman that was here earlier. He came by the house when it was like that, and he left a note on the door and said, hey, you got to contact me, we got to meet. And as he said, we met. I met his family, and I met his children. And as I was talking to them today, they say the children gone, they on their own. I said, wow, and they was babies then. So that's just how long this journey has been, and the joy of it has been, and my honor to be here today with you, because that's what makes an artist grow. When he around people that appreciate what he does, what he's trying to do. And the most important part about it is those that pass on, and that legacy that they leave, a friendship, that's utmost important. So I wanted to add all of that into it because that's the part that makes that site possible today. And this is why we have the way we do it, because we start in Africa, the mother country. I teach the kids, This is the mother country. All life started out of Africa because all types of archaeological finds have been proven by that. Even though many of them fight it and disapprove of it, it starts in Africa. I love the Egyptian art. I love the Mask of King Tut. When I saw it at the Art Institute, my eyes just went over, and it's like they say when you fall in love with something, I just knew them lips was ours. I just knew the eyes was ours. I just knew the ear. That's us, that's us, that's us. And I labored on many pieces trying to get close to that piece. And I got close to it and had it made and had it photographed professionally. And it was a very important part of my work and my collection at that time, and still is. And at this point here is what we did when we was in the yard with the art. I would carry the crowd in the front explaining the journey, the slave trade, and what happened, and how they died on the slave ship and were thrown over the side for food for sharks and other water fish elements. And I shared with them the weight of that rock was like one man trying to pick it up, a daily experience of the people of color, beaten, abused, women sexually assaulted, and the various things that took place in their life during that period of time. And the crowd would just walk around the yard with me, and Reven would be in the back guiding the traffic around the crowd. And we would have a whole group just moving through the crowd. And when we got to the corner, the sign that says, "Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your moment to see what we're trying to do." And it's the state of Illinois emblem in there symbolizing where we are when we travel. And behind that thank you sign is a little boy crouched in a position hiding during a period of slavery, because the Underground Railroad passed through Aurora. And many of the people there that supported it and helped those people, Reven and I searched them out, and we went and found them. It was a little church up in, what was that? Yeah, and we went there to the church, and I shared with them my appreciation for what they done for our ancestors, and we had service with them and enjoyed every moment of it. We went to Geneva to the funeral cemetery and found that there was a lot of slaves there, and a lot of people was appreciating the fact that the cemetery was taking care of their bodies by nurturing with their name, USCG, United States Colored Troops, and things of that nature. Wow. Then the problem that I had coming home was trying to keep my promise to Sergeant Raymond. Sergeant Raymond was a brother in Vietnam. He was a senior brother in the Marine Corps, very hard charging, and very disciplined with Marine Corps principles. And I think that's what affects me today. I'm still very much in that same way in what I do and what I'm doing, because they asked about the amount of art that I have and the amount of art that I produce. And like I tell them all the time, I'm the whole 2nd Marine Division by myself. I'm doing art 23, 24 hours a day, and I'm bought into the fact that that's the only way it's gonna get done, because it's only one. And this sign over the door of the site, it says, "It's in memorial to the over 7,000 African Americans who died in Vietnam." And that was a serious war. The culmination of that war has just came to a point of an anniversary this year, and that's 50 years. 50 years of that war in Vietnam, and I've been home 50 years because I got out in 68, so that gave me a 50-year anniversary of being home, and I've seen nothing of the African-American experience in Vietnam other than when I say at the colleges and the lecture series I go on, how that we have denied them the right to be recognized. That wall in Washington is like gumbo. Everything is in it. Everybody is in it, and that's fine. But we need a wall. And I'm not talking about the wall the man up in Washington talking about. We need a wall. We need a wall so that when you've been charged with a race crime and you done injured the people of color, you need a wall where the judge can send you to that wall and say, these are the niggas that died for you to be free. These are those that gave up their blood when they was young. These are the ones that gave up their lives when they couldn't be buried in certain parts of America. These are the ones that died with your son, black, white, Hispanic, in the blood. Those heads was blown open, and we had to pick them up and put them in a bag and send them home to their parents. And the post-traumatic stress concept has never been taught from an African-American perspective. Dr. Smith strive on it. I let him know without God you'll never make it. He'll forgive you for the killing because you had to do it. We killed children, we killed chickens, water buffaloes, old folks, people in the village. The My Lai massacre is just a basic part of what happened, but it happened. And we're not charged with it because God gave us the strength to complete what America gave us to do. And that is why that site is of utmost importance. And this part of the site, to me, is also important in terms of discussion. That door represents the last thing the slaves saw when they left Goree Island and went to that slave ship, chained up, and marked them and sent them to America for their life dangerous journey in history. That's Rodney King, the piece there that tells the story of what happened to Kunta Kinte. But we took Kunta Kinte and integrated him into Rodney King so that that's the same beating. That's what he got, and that's what we teach the kids, how to deal with the police. Way back before they start killing them as regular as they're doing now, because like I shared with them, they kill you because they're scared of you. They don't want to deal with you, and they'd rather deal with you as killing you and be judged by a jury than carried by 6 of their friends in dealing with you. That's why the kids learn quick, because our attitudes of their minds and focus their eyes, and they begin to think about what the piece means. And that's why it's so successful with kids, because it's always kids being made to indicate who they are. And all of these pieces was there when Cola came. When Cola came, we had talked about the art and what my message was. And Cola shared with me, said, well, Dr. Smith, Miss Terry told me, she said, Dr. Smith, we appreciate what you've done and we love your work and we want to talk to you about it. And I said, well, fine. And I thought they was gonna make a donation or so forth. So they left and came back again, and we continued to talk. And I was talking to them about what my attitude is with the city. I said they're white and they're racist, and the blacks they got sitting next to them supposed to be part of the council. They super ignorant, so there's no need of you trying to tell me to change my message. The church is dead, and the church has no mission, because anytime you operate in a spiritual vocation and move outside the mandates of the theological word of God, you're in error and you're headed to hell, and everybody's going to find out for themselves. Because that's what Hebrews 9:27 said. It's appointed to man once to die, and after that, the judgment. And this is why when your ministry go forth, tell the truth, cry loud, spare nobody, and let the road open up. And that's what we do. Yes, yes, and it works. It worked on the gang members. It worked on the whores on the corner. It worked on those that was living outside their valuable life. Because like I tell them young men, you got more coming to you in God and in your gift than any gang can offer you. And the next time you see your gang leader, ask him, where's your attorney at when you get in trouble? Ask him where's the money for your family when you go to jail. Don't join nothing until it benefits you directly. So that's the story of the museum. That's the various parts of the museum. Cola heard the message. Cola told me, say, Dr. Smith, we're not going to make you change anything. It's your message. It's your art. It resonates well with the community, and I can guarantee you we're going to preserve your message. And after a while, after conversations and conversations, after a while, a trailer truck came down that lonely street and took 5 tractor trailer loads of that art from that site and carried it to Cola. And Cola to art is like your heart is to your body. Without Cola, the art world wouldn't move. Why? Because Miss Ruth Cola has a planned and organized mission and professional, dedicated people that rubs off on you when you go around them. And that's why I love them and what they've done with it. And I pray, God, that they come and get the other part of the art. Yeah, yes, indeed. That's the only thing wrong with this lovely hotel we in. When I went to the washroom, when I go to the hotel, I always see how much class they got. And when I raise that commode and don't see Cola, that's a D. Woo! Yes, indeed. Huh? That's right. Cola has a message, and it's a mission. And I told them in the last show I did with them in September, we got to get more black people here. Black people is lost because they don't have their history. They in drugs, crime, family deterioration, and a lack of respect for the lives of those that died for us to get where we are. They're basically ignorant to the fact. Hosea 4:6 said, my people is destroyed because of lack of knowledge. Not that it's not there, they rejected it. And that's where they treat Dr. Smith. They reject me. But it doesn't matter because God sent me, and that's why they're going to hear the message whether they like it or not. Now look at that. Now that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Now that flag was put up real nice, brand new. Now when you go by the house, all around that, the weeds done growed up. The leaves done fall. And the problem now is it's a statement about our country. And the people pass by now and say, Dr. Smith, don't you think you should change the flag? Why? Well, it looks bad, makes your sight look bad. The flag represents what? America, right? Well, the condition of the flag is the state of America. That's what it is. Every part of this museum is a statement of history. And right now we're in a terrible state. We're in a state so bad it exceeds that of the Civil War. We're already trying to find a Mason-Dixon line where you gonna stand and where they gonna stand and what we gonna do. Everybody done stop praying to God and blaming God. How could you let this happen? And they're going around killing Jews. Why kill the Jews? Haven't they been through enough? Haven't they got enough to live through? And all people of this country need to go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington. If you go there, all the noise and all the talk stops. When you get to the door and you enter into that room, everything comes down on you to see with a shame and what them people went through, what they got to live through. When I came from Detroit, I went through Tennessee, coming back home, because Miss Hess was there speaking. She knew Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank. She knew her. And she was there speaking in Tennessee, and she was talking about how we got to stand up against this bigotry and all of this hatred that's coming into America. Rise up out of your seat and make a stand and tell God you're ready to go to war. And that'll make a change in America. Because that election they talk about midterm, that's not going to change America. All it's going to do is fire up the base on each side, and both of them is stupid. This is what happened when you go to Angola. When you go to Angola prison and sit in that place and you haven't seen heat until you've been down south. Down south, that sun gets so hot, you couldn't believe it. Only thing you need in Louisiana is three things: faith in God, a good air conditioner, and insurance. Because when the hurricane comes, it has no respect of person. You'll never see how vulnerable you are to life's journey until you see everything you own, worked for over the years, sitting on the curb, all rotted, burned, and all wet, and no use to nobody but me and other folk artists that go around and pick up the parts. Woo! Yes, I pick them up, make them up, put them together, put a name on it, and present it to the public as history. Yes. So this is a whole event of the yard. I wish they looked like that now. That's where I used to keep it, so people can come and freely walk in and no charge and ask their questions. The big reptile there represent those Gullah people that went deep into the swamp to live, to get away from those patrollers, those slavers, and made it possible for them to survive. And I used to wonder, well, how did they survive in all them mosquitoes in that condition? But they did. They did. And that's why it was so important to put that piece out there. The children give it a name, but as they get old, I'll teach them the importance of it. The people that you see in the yard represent periods of time in history, periods of time that we're in right now, and collectors love the fact that it has historical meaning that they can deal with, that they can pass on. But the process now is, well, don't give it any value. It don't have any value. It's African American. They outside the box. That's why they call it outsider art. And they ain't doing nothing but lying. They be lying. They be lying, because when you deal with people that collects art, that's what they looking at, because the back of that head, that child you see, he was beaten into submission. And you children didn't play then. That's why I show the pieces to the children. They said, why would you show something gory like that to the children? Their eyes need to open up early so they can start the learning process. What is a slave? And what does it mean to be a slave? Don't keep talking about Rosa Parks sitting on the bus. Just point at a seat and say, that's Rosa Parks. Never mind, keep going. But the point when you get to that slavery, just like this, the Maya Angelou Memorial, they shamed them and took their hair off their head, the woman's glory, messing with her hair, and then brought them to America. And Maya Angelou poems state that they came to stay, and that's what happened. Those pieces represent that. Those pieces tell about what the women had to go through, how they had to be stripped and oftentimes raped, and oftentimes had to wear various rope garments within the private parts of their bodies, because the owner that wanted them didn't want them bringing them back to America pregnant, because they'll find out 8 months later, oh, she pregnant. Why she get pregnant on the slave ship? We know one thing, the slave didn't do it. So it was the ship master that allowed his men to move about that ship to do that. And that's history. That's the part they need to know. Because like I tell the young girl, you not P. Diddy and all the rest of them are bitches and whores. You young ladies that God created, and there's a glory in you that every man is looking for, to love and to marry and to take care and have children. But as long as you keep listening to that dog music, you're going to keep whistling the same song. You got to find God for yourself and be a precious stone somewhere in this earth for some man. Other than that, you just a fool playing a game you'll never win.
Give it up for Dr. Charles Smith. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Woo! Woo, woo.
Thank you.
So much. So we're going to move into question and answer, and we're going to do that together. I will weave my questions in with everyone else's. Does anyone have any questions to start us out? We got a couple.
Good morning. I'm Janine from Detroit. How's everybody doing?
How you doing?
I thought you guys were just beautiful, awesome, wonderful. And the question that I have is, do you know each other?
I'm sure we do.
Yes, I think so. I was just curious because, you know, what's fascinating to me is that there's so many similarities, so many undertones, and it's all connected, isn't it, Doc? I'm done. Thanks.
This young lady here is the head of the Heidelberg Project, her and her husband. And this is the lady that everywhere I go that there's only 2 black females that's the tallest tree in folk art. And they're here today. That's Janine and Cleo. Anywhere else you go, it won't work. That's a fact. And because when you bring facts of truth, that's what made it possible. Those 2 people, Cleo and Janine, and their project. Thank you.
And to answer your question, this is my first time meeting Dr. Charles Smith, even though I have studied his work in my curation, and I included his work in a show that I curated. But I've known these 2 individuals for some time because of proximity, being in Chicago as well.
Wow, thank you, Reverend Smith. I just got out of church. Della, knowing that you put your, artwork up there and you were a situational visionary, would you say that the situations, which came first, the situations or the visions? Because I see that you put in wordplay with your artwork too.
I'm gonna say both, okay? Sometimes, like when I create, I know what I'm gonna do. Then other times it be a situation. And one of the things I think it took me so long to do it, and don't get me wrong, I actually saw my first piece of art at 13, but I used to be involved with an art gallery called Gallery Toward the Black Aesthetics. I didn't view myself as being an artist. In fact, when I was 13, my art teacher used to say, draw beautiful cockroaches, draw beautiful cockroaches. And he'd bring these cow skulls in, and I used to say, you crazy, man, I ain't doing it.
And
But I think for me to do it, when I started at 42, I needed to heal inside. And how I actually started doing it, Evelyn invited me to an art show at Peltz Gallery, which Peltz later ended up representing me. And she was trying to get me to do art for 2 years because she told me I was an artist. And I said, no, you crazy. I'm not an artist. And a voice told me at the show, it was her and this artist, Munir Buckadeen. It was all on Haitian art. And I was taking that African religion course. A voice actually told me to go make art. So I actually went to her studio 2 weeks later. I finally told her I'll go make art. And she was happy. And I went in there, I did 2 pastels and a model print. Never did them before. And they actually turned out to be pictures. And I started doing it. So yes, I think situations influenced me, but I think I think it's both for me.
okay, and Dr. Smith, that was a very powerful speech you gave, so thanks. Inspirational also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'll weave one of mine in. It's come up a couple of times. All of you as practicing artists in these political times, how do you feel akin to leverage your work to push against or to respond to? Many of your work kind of came out of an impulse. Della, you kind of like think about art therapy, kind of a more inner kind of challenge. Dr. Smith, your work was coming as a response to seeing a lack of something, a lack of acknowledgement. But now in these times, you talk about these walls, you talk about the impacts of our community. Does your work right now respond to those things, or do you just kind of ignore that as well?
I don't ignore anything. I get into everything because that's what God's purpose was to be the highway of life, especially for our young people. I get a lot of young people in college that come from Southeastern that's supposed to be in the art department, supposed to be in a career in art and so forth. And I always ask them basic questions that decide whether or not they got the right course or whether or not they have the right the mind made up to deal with it. And I always ask them about the money. You know, where are you going to get the money after you get your art? You know, your papers, you know, your degrees, your prefix on your name and your suffix in the name. What are you going? Where's the money? And many times they really don't know. They really don't know. And then that's what you have to give them what you got, that way you lost, you got burned, that's how they learn, if they pay attention. See, because like I have a 30-year trip here, so they don't need to ask me about what institution did you attend, what are your academic background. The art is my doctoral thesis in Illinois and Louisiana, and I have paperwork proving that people of respect and honorable mention have given me to show you so that you can shut up asking me about institution. You know what I mean? Because when God sends you, he going to equip you. There's no nervousness in it. A crowd don't excite me, and a few don't discourage me. You know what I'm talking about? I deal with it. I come out of that hole like Vietnam, and I rock and roll. That's what it is.
Thank you,
and
sir.
that's what you have to do. But they need encouragement.
Yeah.
They need understanding the importance of what they're doing, and then do what Malcolm X did. Get dedicated. Get dedicated. When you dedicated, you can outdo anybody that's educated. Because once their funds run out, they can't pay the fees for the book. Once they get discouraged from family issues, they're going to quit. They're going to drop out, and they're going to be knocked out. But when you dedicated, there's nothing can stop you. Nobody can hold you down. They told me, say, well, you'll never make it. You're not educated in art. You're not there. I say, watch the joke. Watch the joke. Watch the joke. And when Cole and I completed our deal, I told my wife, I said, baby, they all made a fool of themselves. They all made a fool of themselves. And I didn't take the money and better myself and do the things that most people do, go and buy what they want and buy what they love, buy what they don't need. I went and invested that money in the arts, in the community, and the people. That's why there's a site now in Louisiana. I didn't leave Illinois just to feel good about leaving. I went to expand the plan, the program, and now it's designed to develop itself from Wisconsin, the mothership, Cola, Illinois, the beginning, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and all you had to do is wake up the black folk to see it. It's your boat. It's your gold mine. Nobody can deny you, because if they got a museum, they got to pay for your museum. That's the key, and that's where I was here yesterday, talking to them in Aurora, the developer and the man that's going to put all of the money into the program. He said, well, Dr. Smith, will you come back? Why would I come back to a place where the people don't accept me? Why would I come back to a place where I don't like the people? Why would I come back to a place that people are so ignorant you can't lift their mind up? I'm going downtown in Chicago tomorrow to talk about art, and I'm going to tell them people what the problem is in Aurora. They're ignorant. Ignorant. Ignorant.
All right, all right.
Ignorant.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Yes, we have another question.
Yeah, I'd like to ask each of the artists to, don't overthink it, like what work of art that another artist showed stuck in your mind. And you could do it too, Fahim.
Well, I'll start. I'm not going to say what work of art stuck in my mind, I'm gonna say a particular artist have stuck in my mind. And well, actually, there's several, but I'm gonna give you one. Romar Bearden. He's one of my favorite artists, and I like the fact that he took parts of things to put things together to create something new. And I think that's something that has been done in African American culture. Like, we do it with food, the G's Ben quilts. So for me, that's why I like Romar Bearden.
I actually meant what one of the other artists on the panel showed, like something that's
Okay. Well, I'll respond to that too. I'm not gonna say there's anyone. Again, I responded. I like your shoes. I like the fact that you took soles and shoes. And Dr. Smith, I've seen your work at the Kohler, and it's very powerful. But I think the most powerful thing was the slaves, because we forget. And for me, that was the most powerful thing.
So I like what I liked in your work. I like the almost like Saturday Post type pictures, And I wish I could draw like that. I wish I could draw, but I draw with materials. Doctor's work, I've seen your work before, and the young lady from near Heidelberg, and was always inspired, like, how can I turn my neighborhood into a place like that? How can I turn North Lundell, which is a desolate place, into a place like that? So there's always been an inspiration to that type of art, that type of bringing art to the people, and you get inspired by happenstance because it's there.
Well, as the artist, of course, materiality is real important. I'm a sculptor, so whether it's Dr. Charles Smith's thinking about community and space and scale, that's a real important thing. And in a lot of ways, everyone up here is dealing with assemblage in a lot of ways too. But I love Marvin's, once again, his kind of fusion between sound. I mean, that performance was just like, man. It just hit me to the core, brother. So, I mean, just thinking about how that moves into a physical form and just fluidly kind of does that. And then, of course, Della thinking about this kind of surrealist kind of space, and then these, motifs with the chicken in the eyes and these things kind of patterning. And just this kind of advocacy through your subject matter of thinking about Black women and then this resistance and I love it, So I'm a fan of everyone up here. So I don't know if I can pick one, So I'm a big fan. But yeah. Dr. Smith, do you have looking at the works that were just done, were there any things that stuck out to you that you really enjoyed watching in the presentations of your fellow?
Well, all of it was impressive to me, especially since it was work of people of color. And that it means that God's Spirit is still moving with us and in us regarding on how to respond to things. I do a lot of discussion with African artists from the motherland, and they talk and they say, well, how did you do this and never been to Africa? Reven and I was at a meeting at a hotel here, and this guy from Africa, he was a prince or something. And he came and Reven brought him over and he said, this is Dr. Smith. And he said, you Dr. Smith? He said, you do this art? How do you do the motherland art in this country? You been back to Africa? No, not yet. But I want you to know that this art is very good, very good. I work with the students in the art, in the motherland. And I was very impressed with that. That's what impresses me more than anything about the art. It's not what institutions give you credentials for, because they can take them back. They can take them back. But when you've been respected and appreciated by people like this piece here, See this piece here? Let me get it. This guy is a friend of mine, and he sent him over to my house. And what impressed me more than the guy's art was what I felt about his relationship with his son. His son was there with him, identifying and supporting what his father was doing. And that was so great. And when I showed that to my wife, it came the very day I was leaving. She said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm carrying it with me." I said, "I'm going to sit on the train and look at my funeral. That is all right." Now that's deep. Now that's what art imagination does. And what makes it so great, we honored to have him present right there. Stand up, bro. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Wow. That is so deep. Huh?
That's awesome.
Yes. So I appreciate art, and I love what it does when it's teaching. It's the most powerful method in the world. It's like the hieroglyphics in the cave when you saw it and then they read it. When you go to Egypt, the Egyptologists, they be reading along the line. What is the word? What is the word? There's no word. It's they're reading, telling the story. And that's what art does, and that's what I appreciate.
That's excellent. So we're going to, let's give them a round of applause and thank them. And they're going to be here. Also, yeah, please give them a, please. And I think if I'm not mistaken, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Smith has a little bit of a presentation he wants to do of some pieces down here on the end, and we'll close with that.
Okay. Well, I've already spoken on it, but not loudly. But this is a memorial piece of love, of my appreciation for Intuit and what they have meant to me and support me over the years, and the wonderful friends that I made through the many of them. And it's also a memorial to my nieces, 3 of them, that died from breast cancer. And I told the lady in New Orleans, I said, "How come you don't have them African-American sisters? Don't they get breast cancer too?" She said, "Yeah, but they don't come." I said, "But what we need to do is stretch the message, and you need to come out." So this is a memorial piece to my niece and to those that died in the faces of mass of the culture that we exist around, showing the one blood relationship. God took one blood and made all nations, and the veiled garment of the widow love and the families of those that died shows her place in society, forever there. See, it won't rot, won't burn, won't break, and it won't fade away. Just like she stand now, she be there till eternity. Because I made her that way. She can stand a 500-mile-an-hour hurricane. This goes to a man that was instrumental in my total being as an artist. This man, he's not present today, but his associate worker, Professor Lisa Stone, is here, which we're putting in her care to get to him. Professor Jim Zanzi. A lot of people ask me, "Well, how do you figure you're a doctor, or whatever?" And the name was conferred on me by Professor Jim Zanzi. His students used to come to the site in Illinois, in Aurora. And we would talk and talk, and he always say, "Well, Dr. Smith this, Dr. Smith that." And he continued that, and that name stuck. And since he gave it to me, I don't let nobody take it from me. I don't let nobody take it from me. A reporter one time said, Charles, I hope set him down. That we don't want no question from him. He read the brochure. They told him who I was, and why would you call me Charles? So that's my attitude about it, because it's an honor that Jim Zanzi thought enough of me, and to that may I've thought enough of him to say, I love you, and I want him to be with you. The 54th is the representation of the men that fought with Colonel Robert Gould Shaw in the movie you might remember, Glory. And Jim Zanzi gave me a book that said, Latest Laurel Wreath, and I want him to put that in his home, that he'll forever be there and watching over what's taking place. So thank God for Professor Jim Zanzi.
Thank you so much, everyone.